Welcome back to my channel. Okay, what am I doing? Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Devin and I'm really excited to talk to you about books today. Specifically books that I really hope that you read sometime in your life. So first of all, I wanted to thank everybody for your feedback on my last video asking you guys for help about direction moving forward, about things to share. And it feels right to me to share books that I hope that you read in your life. I wanted to make a my favorite books of all time video, which I might make in the future, but that was a little too hard for me right now to do. And also I have a good feeling that this year in 2022 that I'm going to read some new books that are my all-time favorites, because I have a huge TBR that I want to tackle this year. My goal is to read 37 books. I'm going to try to hit 40. Anyway, regardless, that video is for another time, and this video is books that I hope that you read sometime in your life. So I have over 20 books on this list today for you guys. I feel really good about it because these are all soul books, like books that have had an impact on my life somehow. Some of them are all-time favorites. Some of them will always be all-time favorites for me. Other ones, I just really hope that you read them. Now, I have a wide range of books I want to talk about. So I have nonfiction, I have fiction, I have a range of nonfiction and fiction, and just little pieces of different genres and different nuggets that have got me through my life and have got me through really hard times, good times, all the times. I mean, I've had books here that have stayed with me for over a decade that I have read and reread. And when I contemplated this topic of books I really hope that you read, books that I'm glad that I read, books that I recommend to people, I'm excited to share this with you. And I could have made a list of 50 books, probably double this size, but I wanted to keep it at 20 so this was digestible. I hope that whoever you are, wherever you are in your life, that you find some nugget in this video that either brings you comfort or joy or some kind of, life-changing experience, or some affirmation or connection to feeling like you're not alone in the world based off other people's experiences. So I have about 7 books on the list that I do not physically have with me. I have a book buying problem and a massive library in multiple locations of different storages and things like that. So I have a chunk of them with me here today, and then I also have a list of about 8 or so books that I don't have with me that I do want to share as well. I'm going to list these in the description for easy access probably, so you can just go and recap, or you can kind of skip through this video. And I'm going to go back and forth between fiction and nonfiction, so that just kind of keep it interesting. I don't, sometimes the nonfiction can be a little bit heavier, a little bit more dense, so I want to switch it up between, fiction and nonfiction. So I got this handy dandy list for you. Before you leave, if you find this helpful, make sure to like it and subscribe. And I want to hear from you guys as always, so as I'm going through this, I want to hear if you've read any of these books. I want to hear your take on them. I want to hear your favorite books and books you hope other people read, because, sharing is caring. So I'm going to start off this video with probably by far my all-time favorite book ever, and I hope that you read this. I hope specifically women read this book. But I also think men should read this book. I actually gave my other copy to one of my guy friends in Bali when I was leaving on my last trip a couple years ago. And it is Women Who Run with the Wolves. So this is probably one of my all-time cherished books. I got it about a decade ago when I was living in New York. It is a book to slowly digest over time in your life, but it is kind of one of those classics that you keep with you. And this book is a masterpiece. I could make multiple videos just about this book, and maybe I will. When I was preparing for this, I kind of skimmed through it. It made me realize I do need to go back and reread some of this stuff. I reread some of these beginning initiations I don't even know how many times over the years of my life. It's not an easy read. It's basically the premise of this book. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, She tells a myth or a story based off her lineage, and it's written as like a fiction story, and a lot of them are these classic kind of old tales. And then as a psychologist, she breaks down the psyche of that, the personal development of that story, and it's just, this is just an epic book. It's something that literally I read like chunk to chunk to chunk over a decade of time, like, and every time I picked up that chapter it was like exactly where I was going through in my life. This is something that I think if you love somebody, give them this book, or give them this book. This is also something to take your time with. It's not something to binge read. It's something to have with you as a companion. And I think every woman should own this book, regardless of how far you get into it. I think there's even some of this that I haven't even read yet or didn't fully digest. So I had a smaller copy, and this is, as a traveler, I traveled for, I don't know, a decade or something like that. There were only certain books I traveled with that I could carry with me that like logically made sense to bring, and the smaller copy of this book was one that I brought with me on my journey, on my soul spiritual journey. And by the time I finally let it go in 2020, it was like falling apart and it was like missing pages, and I realized, okay, I gotta let this go, and I gave it to a friend of mine. And I got this copy as like, you know, it was a little easier to read. So anyway, get this book, guys. I really hope you read it, and I hope that if it's not for you, that you at least tell other people about it, because it's my all-time favorite book and it's changed my life. So I'm gonna go to a little continue with some nonfiction, and then we're gonna jump into some fiction. But for all of my Human Design peeps and my Gene Keys peeps, which is maybe how you found this video, from my past work, I want to talk about two of my favorite books from Richard Rudd. So obviously we have Gene Keys, and then which is an extension of Human Design. It's not Human Design, but it's a extension of the work. So in Human Design there are gates from the Chinese I Ching. Gene Keys takes a whole different level, a whole different journey with those gates and into Gene Keys. So they are two different teachings. I commingled them. That was like a part of my work for years. And this book I started reading in 2014, and I highly recommend, if you are interested in either of those systems, that you get the Gene Keys book. Obviously, this is also something to not like read front to cover. I recommend when you get this book, just read the intro and take it as what feels right. Obviously, you're going to get the most out of this book if you get your free chart from the Gene Keys, so I'll make sure to put that stuff in the description. So if you get this book, that you know how to kind of get through it at your own pace. When I dove in 2014, I had already been heavy in my Human Design training, and every time there was something lacking or a block with Human Design, or something that just like didn't make sense, or I was like frustrated about, or I picked up the Gene Keys and it was like, it was there. So I remember reading my Radiance for the first time, which you'll know if you get your chart, and I was just sitting there in tears. It was like I had never felt somebody kind of hit a chord in me before. So Richard Rudd is actually a friend of mine. I deeply respect Richard. I think he's a genius. This is poetically done and a masterpiece. This is, I think, the old copy, the first edition maybe. So there is new editions if you do order it, but I highly recommend this book, or I highly recommend having this in your library. I also will use it as like an oracle. You know, you just open it up and you get some wisdom. You don't need to follow any of these teachings or do this kind of work to get something from the Gene Keys. This is a powerful book. It's life-changing. And it's a beautiful take on humanity and healing in humanity. Now, next with Richard Rudd, if you are into Human Design, this is, I would say, Human Design specific only. I would recommend his circuitry book. This is also an old edition. I don't think this is even available anymore, to be honest. I think he recently reproduced this, so I would go check it out on the Gene Keys site, which I'll link in the description, make it easier for you guys. So this is by far my favorite Human Design book ever written. It is specifically on circuitry, and it is a guide to circuits, channels, and gates. So this is, when I was traveling and I was working with Human Design and I was training and stuff, this was the only one I brought with me because it was small enough to bring, and it is a masterpiece. It is the best take on the channels, the gates, and the circuits that I have ever come across with Human Design, and I did a lot of study, guys. Okay, So this is old edition, but there's a new edition. I highly recommend if you're into human design, grab the circuitry book. It is, I really hope you read this if you're into that kind of work, okay? So thanks for sticking with me, guys. Let's switch to some fiction to kind of change the pace a little bit and lighten it up. These are life-changing books, and they're also initiation kind of books. They're ones to have in your library, and I hope you have, and I hope you cherish. I don't like pick up these books and read them all the time. I go through waves of them and that kind of thing. So next I want to talk about a very popular book by Matt Haig. It's called The Midnight Library. If you've probably already heard about it if you watch book reviews on YouTube. It was definitely one of my favorite books that I read in 2021, last year. And then I also have another one by Matt Haig I'll talk about next, which I was inspired to get after reading The Midnight Library. So The Midnight Library is about a girl named Nora, and she is having a really hard time in her life, and she enters the Midnight Library, which is the space between life and death, where she gets to look at all the different choices in her life and actually play out, like jump into that portal of her life at that time if she made different decisions. And she's able to go through, in this Midnight Library, all these different ways her life could have been. Now, this is a great quick read. It will make you think about life, and it's awesome. I mean, I picked it up at a time where I really needed it, and it's awesome. It's like so cool to go on these different journeys, and it really makes you think about your life and the power of choices. So after reading this book, I was a huge fan of the author, Matt Haig. So I picked up his nonfiction book, The Comfort Book, and I'm currently reading it, but I hope that you guys read it because it's also just kind of a staple to have with you to pick up when you need it. It's an easy read, and he has these little essays in here, like, for example, Reminder for Tough Times. One day this will be over, and we will be grateful for life in ways we never felt possible before. So there's some good gems in this book. I'm like solid halfway through it, and I think that you guys should read it because it's a good one, and I have a lot of respect for Matt Haig. And there's just some good gems in here that I think can relate to everybody. So, The Comfort Book. Where do I go next? Okay, let me talk about a few books that I don't have here with me that I hope you read. 1, Harry Potter. Everybody knows Harry Potter, right? Have you read it? A lot of people have read it. I read the first 3 in high school and tried to get to the 4th one, and then realized I had to reread them. So last year I read the first 4 Harry Potter books, and now I'm on the 5th. The reason I hope everybody reads Harry Potter, no matter how old you are, is because it is a classic escape. So Harry Potter is one of those books that I can dive in at any time and really get so much out of the story. And it's a classic for a reason, you know, and I hope that you guys read Harry Potter. And if you've been thinking about reading it or rereading it, this is your friendly reminder or invitation to read Harry Potter. Next, I did a book review on this a couple years ago. This is a thriller. It was interesting when I was like thinking about this list of books I hope you read. I love thrillers and psychological mysteries and things like that, but there weren't many thrillers on this because I don't particularly, even though there's some of my all-time favorites, I don't particularly like really hope that you read them, right? Because sometimes thrillers are like disturbing or intense, you know? So a lot of my all-time favorite thrillers didn't make this list, but guess what? One of them did, and it's Origin by Dan Brown. So Dan Brown is known for the Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons and things like that. I read Da Vinci Code a long time ago. It was great. But Origin by Dan Brown is epic. I think it is a masterpiece, and the reason I hope that you read it is because not only is it written at a high-paced, high-stakes thriller mystery novel, but it has some groundbreaking, shatter the way you see life, put it back together, and give you a big hug. And the premise of Origin, I don't want to go like too details into all the plots of all these books because I want you to get the gist of why I think you should read them. But it is basically about science and religion, and it's about these two different, you know, ways of thinking and put into such a high stakes book. Like I was talking to a friend about this book actually, and we both had the same take on it, and it was like I was reading this so fast and there were so many nuggets. Like there were so many times I would want to underline just the wordings or the thought-provoking content in this book, but I was reading it so fast I didn't even care. Like it was like I was just blown away by this book. It's a book I'd probably read again. I don't have it with me because I was in Bali when I read it, and it came at a time when I was breaking up with human design, and it was just really challenging thought processes, and that's where I was in my life. So I hope you read this book. It's amazing, and I don't care what anybody says about Dan Brown's books. I say this, it's definitely one of my all-time favorite books for sure. So let me shift back to some nonfiction, because I gave you some fiction. All right, I'm just going all over the place with these different genres and things like that, because I think it's important to read different types of books, and I think at different times in our lives we have different books that come in for certain reasons, right? So this is also like a very well-known book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. I also read her book Spark Joy. I think you should read this book. I don't like religiously live by her practices in here, but they have absolutely changed my life. I've just recently taught a great friend of mine how to organize their clothes and fold them, and I felt a lot of joy actually sharing what I learned from this book after years of kind of practicing it and integrating it into my life. Also, as a traveler, I've had to learn to like let go or like pack or minimalize, and I am not a minimalist. I have a lot of stuff. I love plants and I love books, but I have also really been impacted by this. It's helped me let go of clothes, books, all the things, and I think that the psychology of this and the way that she puts it is just really helpful, and it's a good book to have. It's a good book to... So I was like 20 minutes into filming this video and it cut out and it didn't save. I blame Mercury retrograde. So the next book is a part of a series, and that series is the Seven Sisters series by Lucinda Riley. I only have the fifth one. It's The Moon Sister. I recently finished it this year. It's one of my first books of 2022. So this book is a part of a seven book series, and you don't have to read them in order, but this is a very special series, and I recommend it to like all my girlfriends or anybody that asks me about what book to dive in next. So I want to share a little bit about why this was so impactful for me, and the best thing about this series. So I recommend this book obviously, but I recommend the whole series. I've only read 3, but I assume from what I've heard that they're all awesome. So I hope that you read something in the Seven Sisters series. The Seven Sisters series is about 6 adopted sisters. The 7th is the missing sister, who were all adopted by this elusive millionaire named Pa Salt in Geneva. And on his passing, when he dies, he gives each one of the girls a clue about where they came from, about their heritage, and each book starts off when Pa Salt dies for each one of the sisters, and their individual journey to then uncover their past. And each one is like radically different. That's why I love this series. So I read the 2nd, the 4th, and the 5th. This is the 5th. You don't have to read them in order, and my favorite one so far is the 2nd one. I did another book review on this. The reason these books are like so awesome is because they are half historical fiction and half present day. So what happens is each one of the sisters starts going on this journey, and then it jumps back in time based off their ancestors and starts telling that story in another country, in a different culture. And then eventually it gets, up to present day of them kind of unraveling their past. And each one of the girls has a special gift or talent or something in their life that they love or they're working on. And I loved it, I absolutely loved it, and I look forward to continuing reading this series, and I think that it's a great one to dive into, because they're rich, they're fulfilling, and they're chunky books, you know, like this one took me almost a year to finish, but I was so happy that when I did. So if you are if you like historical fiction, if you are a woman going on a journey and you want some inspiration, if you want to dive into this series, which I hope that you do, I would look up, either start with the first one. I found the second one by accident. That's why I read that. But I would look into maybe each one of the sisters, see which one you resonate with. So, and each one has a totally different personality and different background. So I absolutely love this series, and I look forward to reading more of the series, and I hope that if this resonates with you, that you also dive into the series, and I'd love to hear from you about it. So next we have a nonfiction book. It is called Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg. This is a special book. This is a staple book. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It is very nourishing for the writer or the artist within. So I highly recommend this book. And if you have been impacted by your own writing practice, or you want to write more, or you see the value in writing, I say grab this book, pick at it, open it with care, love it. This is a love letter to writers, I would say. It is a classic. So I have the 30th anniversary edition. I was recommended this book when I was working and writing with Elephant Journal, and it was a recommended resource, and I'm really glad that I grabbed it. So I really hope you read this book if you want to nurture and inspire and celebrate the writer within. If you need inspiration to write more, I love this book, and I really hope that you read it too. So next we have The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. I have the little pocket manual size book. I thought it was kind of cute, but you can get a normal size one. So this is 1 hour of wisdom. You can technically read this book in 1 hour. So I remember I had a friend I met in Bali years ago who told me that this was her favorite book of all time and that she traveled with it. So it was kind of in my radar for a while, and I finally read it last year, and I loved it. I actually read it a few times, and it has such a depth of wisdom and a punch of life resources that you can literally reread and reread and reread forever. I actually read this with one of my best friends, and we sat and read it together, and it was a special experience. And I hope that you get this book, and I hope that you read this book, because it is a life companion that can give you some really rich nuggets in life to take with you. And I think it's one of those staple kind of classic books that you pick up at the right time in your life. And I really hope you read it because it's awesome, and I was happy that I finally got around to reading it, and I look forward to reading it again this year. So go grab this book, guys. Next in the list of books I don't have with me is a classic, and it's The Hobbit. So I'm sure you've heard of The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. The reason that I hope that you read this and I recommend it is because I distinctly remember reading it in high school, and it was the first book that I viscerally remember physically transporting into another universe. I remember sitting in my old childhood house and sitting on the couch, and I remember just the vivid scenes of being transported into The Hobbit, and looking back, it's one of those beloved books that I feel this year I'm ready to reread. So I hope you read it, and I hope that it is as much fun for you as it was for me, and I'm sure that reading it over a decade later will be a whole new experience. But it's one of those books that should definitely be read in your lifetime because it's epic. So the next book is a nonfiction book, and it is called Animal Speak by Ted Andrews. So I was actually looking up a couple years ago when I was in Bali, I was looking up animal symbolism. This book is about animal symbolism and encounters with animals and things like that. Now, I was looking up symbolism on YouTube because I was having these like crazy encounters with animals in Bali, and I've always been connected to nature, and I've always like, you know, seen the magic, or would take the coincidence, or kind of try to understand the meaning, or if I had a dream about an animal, like I would look it up, that kind of thing. So another person on YouTube recommended this book, so I got it on my iBooks, and I kept it as a companion for a while. And anytime that I had a experience, like, and in Bali I had like really weird experiences, like I had like bats almost run into my face. I had bats like living in the place that I lived. I was actually cornered by bats in my bathroom one time. I had all sorts of like cats that would show up in my house. Like there, so many times I do a whole video about my cat encounters. They find me wherever I go. I'm like a international cat lady. But I also had like a monitor lizard encounter, which was like a dinosaur in my backyard. I had so many like powerful face-to-face encounters with animals at that time in my life. So Animal Speak by Tanya Andrews is a great resource to have to not only like celebrate the power of like our connection with animals, but to also really kind of like understand the symbolism in our life of when we feel really connected to that. If you've ever done any shamanic work with spirit guides, you know, I don't really want to go too deep into that, but it's a deeply spiritual book, and it is a journey. It's not one you read start to finish. It's one that you kind of look up what you're experiencing at the time. I love it for dreams, so I've had some like really powerful totems come to me in dreams, and it's a great resource to have. So I hope you read that book. I hope that if you feel connected to the animal kingdom, if you have powerful dreams, if you've had powerful experiences in nature, if you feel connected to certain animals in your life, pick up that book because it's awesome, and I hope that you read it. I hope that it gives you some insight into your life and what the animals are trying to say to you. So next we have a classic on trauma. It's The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma by Bessel van der Kolk. So this is a staple in the field of trauma. I think that it's an important research, there's a lot of research in this book, resource, because trauma is humanity, right? Like, we as human beings, we all experience some level of trauma in our lives, and I think that the more that we can kind of understand it, and understand how the body keeps a score, and understand how we are all impacted by trauma, I think that it can really help bring out more compassion in the world for each other, but also for ourselves. So I read this book years ago, and I love like going back. It's not like an easy book to get through, but I hope you read it, because I hope that you have this resource to give you a little bit better understanding of maybe why your body responds the way that it does. So when I was reading this, it gave me validation in like why I had responded, my body had responded or shut down in certain situations that I couldn't really understand. So this is a powerful resource, and I hope you read it. So to continue the conversation on trauma, the other trauma book that I highly recommend and hope that you read is called Waking the Tiger by Peter Levine. So I actually may hope that you read this one before The Body Keeps the Score. I'm not sure. I read it second. There's something special about the Waking the Tiger in the sense where he really celebrates the primalness of our animal instincts, and our, you know, how, what I loved about it was the being highly contemplative and analytical. Sometimes we can forget the power of our body's instinct, especially in regards to traumatic situations or really stressful situations. So I hope that you read this book, The Waking the Tiger, because I think that it will open up new resources on how to deal with challenging situations. So and there's some key things that have stood out to me that have really helped me in my journey of just like really releasing stress. And I think that was the biggest thing that I got from that, whether it's traumatic or not. But a lot of our stress responses are stored in our body, right? The body keeps a score. And by releasing a lot of that physical charge that we have, it can really help other things. So I hope you read this book because it's powerful, it's important, and like I said, trauma is very intimately linked in our human experience, and I think more people should read about it and more people should understand and use those resources for your own healing and also supporting other people as well. So those are my trauma resources that I hope that you read. All right, so next, one of my all-time favorite books is The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. Okay, so this is a book I recommend to a lot of people. I had it for years until actually my mom told me to read it. She was like, you haven't read The Celestine Prophecy? Read it. And that's kind of all I want to say about it. Yeah, go read it. So what I love about this book is it's a highly spiritual book, but it's set as a novel, like a thriller novel. And it's about this guy who goes on this journey to find this ancient manuscript in Peru, and the government is trying to conceal it. So it is like a high thriller packed him going on this adventure, and as he learns these 9 insights in life, he meets all these people on his journey as they're trying to get the manuscript, and the government is like trying to, you know, kill people and cover it up. He's learning these really profound insights through as he continues on his journey. And that's what I'm going to say about that. Go get that book. I hope you read it. And if it takes you a while to read it, just get it and have it in your library. Because I had it for years before I actually read it. And then when I finally did, I was like so happy I read it. So I really hope you read it because it's a special book. And it will give you some juicy life insights, but in a style that's like really fun to read. So as you can tell through this video, although I have many books that I hope you read, there's also authors that I hope you read. So one of them is Don Miguel Ruiz. I have The Master of Love with me now. I read The 4 Agreements years ago, like 7 or 8 years ago, and I ate it up. These are short little books packed with resources, packed with wisdom. I've had this book for over a decade. I was given to actually by my ex-boyfriend. Great guy. Read half of it in 2017, finished it in 2021, started to reread the old part of it. Basically it's ancient Toltec wisdom, and I hope that you read something from Don Miguel Ruiz. I also read like the attachments or something, but anything from his series I hope you read, because they're very powerful. They'll make you think of, you know, really the way he writes it is different. And I think that what's important about these books is that it's passed down wisdom, Toltec wisdom about the mastery of life, mastery of love, and all that good stuff. So I hope that you pick up this author, and I hope that you read one of his books. I only have one of them here, and I'm going to go pass this on to one of my friends, because that's what you do when, you know, you have a book that's awesome. So I hope that you get something from this author. Alright, that last little bit cut off because clearly today I am having technical difficulties with this video, so I'm going to take that as a sign to chill out for a little bit and wrap it up. So to wrap this up, I have more books that I hope that you read, but for today I'm going to keep it at that. So please leave a like, subscribe. I want to hear back from you. Let me know what you think in the description, and obviously if there's books you think I should read, I really want to know. I would love to share more with you about my book journey and all that good stuff. So thanks for staying with me, guys. Thank you so much for your support, and I hope that you found this helpful and nourishing, and I hope that if you pick up one of these books that has a positive impact on your life. So I'm sending you guys lots of love, and have a beautiful day. Bye for now.